episode 176, Ironman World Championship with Brent McMahon. Welcome to the pursuit of the perfect race. I'm Coach Terry Wilson, and with each episode, I bring stories of athletes to you that share their experiences at races in order for you to learn how to have your perfect race. We will hear stories from athletes of all ages, abilities, and races of all distances. So regardless of where you fit in, there's something in it for you. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now let the pursuit begin. I have the pleasure of talking with, how do you say your last name? I don't want to butcher it.
McMahon.
McMahon, okay.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Pursuit of the Perfect Race. Today I have the pleasure of talking with Brent McMahon about his recent race at Ironman Kona, the World Championship. This race took place on October 13th, 2018, with the weather being 72 and 82 degrees, and the water was in the 80s. Brent has been doing triathlons for nearly 22 years and has been a pro nearly half of his life, or actually more than half of his life. He has a great amount of information and knowledge to share about his race today. Welcome to the show, Brent. I look forward to diving in about your race and spending some time with you today.
Sounds great. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. So, what was it like qualifying for Kona? I know you did Kona last year as well as Arizona, and you got plenty of other races around the world, all the way to the Philippines and Thailand. What was it like getting your spot for Kona this time?
It's each year you race in Kona, you're trying to improve your preparation, improve your qualification, all in hopes of getting there fresher, stronger, faster. And so each year I've evolved. This year was my fourth year in Kona. The qualifying, has gone fairly similarly, each year, because I typically now have done Ironman Arizona in the fall after Kona. And so that starts my qualifying period. And I've either won or come second in Ironman Arizona. So that always got me a good chunk of points and started on the world rankings in order to qualify for Kona. So really it allowed me then to, in the next season after the break, go and find a race I wanted to do to sort of get those final points that I would need to move up the rankings and get a spot for Kona. So it was nice because it allowed me, to choose which race, what time of year I wanted to do either another Ironman, and same with my 70.3. So this year, in previous years, I'd done Ironman Brazil, which was the championship race for the South America. So this year I wanted to do something different, and so I chose to do Texas, which is the North America Championship. And I like doing championship races because you go up against some of the best in the world, and it's a deep field. The other reason I wanted to do it was Texas has typically been quite hot, other than the odd year where they get hail and windstorms. But typically it's hot, and that's, what Kona is. And so I wanted to do Texas, to A, have a great field to race against, but also B, go through some hot conditions and, practice what is going to happen in Kona. So that I did that race. And then Ironman Canada was my other focus for this year. Because, it's an alternating men-women pro race. So last year I didn't have the opportunity to race it because it was the women's race. So this year it was the men's pro race. And it's got a long history with Canadian Ironman athletes. Peter Reid and Laurie Bowden and Lisa Bentley have all won Ironman Canada and obviously have all gone on to race well in Kona. So it was an opportunity to do one of those iconic races for me, and something before I retire, I wanted to go to Ironman Canada, and I wanted to win it.
Wow.
So I had that opportunity this year. So that's kind of how I, created my plan for qualifying for Kona. Ultimately, I didn't need to do Ironman Canada after racing Texas. I had enough points to qualify for Kona. So it was nice to be able to go into Ironman Canada with, no qualifying pressure, and just, go in and focus on winning and putting together a great race.
Wow. So at Texas this year, they shortened the course a little bit, and there was a lot of controversy with the drafting there. And on the fly, your strategy had to change a little bit. What was that like?
Well, that actually had to change quite a bit because I was riding at the front of the group. There was three of us sort of just off the front, and all three of us had not done Ironman Texas before. So we actually rode off course on one of the highway overpasses. So I think it was, who was it? It was Rudy Wild, myself, and I can't remember who else, but the three of us, we went up an overpass and we were supposed to turn left, but we went up and then over and back down the on-ramp. And, so we actually ended up riding a kilometer down the on-ramp. And then finally a referee motorcycle came up and was like, "Hey, you guys got to go, you got to turn around." So then we had to turn around and ride into oncoming traffic because it wasn't actually a closed road. So we were all kind of dodging cars coming down the on-ramp and eventually got back up onto the overpass. And then we had to, ride back on, to where we eventually, got back to the front group. And, so though the course was short, three of us rode the full Ironman 180 kilometer distance because we made it up. So when we all went under 8 hours, I could, legitimately say to myself, okay, I went under 8 hours again because I did actually ride the full distance. And, the course really was only, I think it was like a mile or a mile and a half short. So it's, it's not a huge amount. Every Ironman you go to, there's always some, they're not certified. So at the end of the day, we don't know any of the Ironmans, how exact they are. Sometimes they cancel swim or you half swim, or if the buoys move, they're short, so it's, they're all pretty rough idea of exact distance. But yeah, no, it was definitely a different challenge in Texas, but, I eventually got back to where I wanted to be, which was the front group. And, there was actually fairly low wind. So that's, I think part of the reason why, drafting was an issue in the amateur race, because it's a flat race, but there's no wind. And, it's the same with Kona this year. There was no wind, and the wind is sort of the deciding factor when you got a group of people riding together. You either have hills, which break it up, or you've got wind. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you are, there was no wind in Texas and there was no wind in Kona. And so it really didn't allow for any separation. In the pro field, we all try and abide by the rules. None of us want to cheat. We all do this because we enjoy the challenge. And, and so we keep our distance. And, there may be a line of 15, 20 or 25 guys like in Kona, but we're all trying. And we all want to have an honest race, and we all want to finish knowing that, we raced honestly and we challenged ourselves. So some courses it's easier to do it than others.
Wow. So to come off of the 70.3 you did in the Philippines after you won Ironman Whistler in Canada, what was your training like? I know that you wanted to obviously kind of recover a little bit before you dove into the heavy part of the bulk of your training for Kona. What was this like for you?
Well, yeah, obviously, coming off of an Ironman, you need to recover from it. You need to make sure your system, not just your muscles and not just the training part of you, your nervous system, that drive to work hard and race, that needs to recover. And the only way to recover that is, it's not just doing easy workouts. It's actually taking time off. It's giving your brain a break from pushing itself. And so for me, after, those two races, Ironman Canada and the Philippines, which was the next week, it was just taking some time off. So I took a week completely off and I took a week completely easy. And then, with coming out of that, I'm feeling a little bit fresher. I'm wanting to train. And then you work back into, for me, essentially two blocks. One's a volume block to get the mileage and muscle endurance. And then the other is, an intensity block where you work on that higher end. And we like to separate them. So you're working on different energy systems at different times. So you can get the most out of them. And so really that's it. You carry a lot of fitness from doing an Ironman. Basically, any race is an epic workout. So A, you have to recover from it, but B, if you do recover from it, then you should benefit from that effort. So, so when you do an Ironman, it's, the fitness doesn't just disappear once you've done the race. You've done a 8-9 hour workout, and that's going to help you moving forward. So we feel we don't need to do as much training, say, as the beginning of the year. When I'm getting ready for my first Ironman of the year, I'm coming off the off season. I've got to build, all of the components for a much longer time. But once you're in season, you're carrying that fitness all through the year, even when you take breaks. So, because you're not typically taking the same length of break in the middle of the season as you would in the off season. So it was not a massive block that we did going into Kona. It was more just sort of 2 short blocks of, one endurance and 1 intensity.
Okay. So you raced in Thailand and you raced in the Philippines twice this year alone. What are you doing over there in the Philippines so much?
Well, I have a partner, Alaska Milk, but it's also a good friend, Fred Utengzu, owns and operates Alaska Milk, and he's since retired, but he also owns and operates Sunrise Events, which put on those Philippine and Thailand races. And, and I know Fred, and my coach, Lance Watson, has coached Fred as well, for a long time. And so I have a long-standing relationship with them, and Fred and Sunrise Events put on some of the best races in the world. And anybody that has gone to a Sunrise event, will agree. And so for me, I like going over there to support Fred and, what he does in the community there. When we go to races, we have, school visits, and we have kids runs and all sorts of events leading up to the race. And then we typically, the day after the race, go and do a community event as well. So for me, it's about going over there to race, but it's also about going over there and supporting Fred and what they do in the community. And, I've been going over there for, I think this year was my 5th year going over there. And every time it's just such a great experience. The events are amazing. They have like this massive, party before the race as well as after the race with all these dancers and fireworks and music. And it really is a great cultural experience. And so, there's kind of 2 races that people ask me, about a lot. And they also ask, well, if you could go do one race, I always say either going to the Philippines and doing one of those events, or going to Mont Tremblant in Quebec in Canada. Those are 2 of the most amazing races I've ever done.
Wow. It seems like you really like giving back to the community over there.
Yeah, that's the thing. I've grown up in the sport of triathlon. I did my first one when I was 10 years old, and I was just a kid that had lots of energy and loved sport. And if it weren't for the triathlon community and, the older athletes that I got to meet and train with and develop with, I wouldn't be doing this right now. And so I want to give back, and I want that opportunity for kids in my community, but I also want it in any place that I race, because it is such a great sport, and health and fitness is so important. And it's more accessible in some places, but there's no reason it can't be accessible in every region. And, like the Philippines is, it's a diverse economic bracket there. And, but it doesn't mean that kids can't swim, they can't ride bikes, and they can't run. And, it's just about, getting them out there and having fun and just getting them access to sport in general. And even if it's not triathlon, when I was a kid, I did all sorts of sports. I played soccer and water polo and rock climbed and mountain biked. And for me, it was just participating. And then eventually I, honed those skills and became a professional triathlete. But I wouldn't have become a professional triathlete if I hadn't done sport to start. And so, being able to be a part of that in wherever I go it's pretty fun.
Wow. And you've been in this sport now for 22 years, and you're only 38 now, and you've been with the same coach, Lance Watson, with Life Sport Coaching for the entire duration. What has it been like being under someone that is so knowledgeable in the sport for so long?
It's really unique in obviously the sport of triathlon, but also in sport in general. To have a coach that you've worked with for over 20 years, there's probably literally only a handful of athletes in the world, that have had that long of a relationship. And, it's a relationship. Your coach athlete it's a cooperation. At the beginning, when you're young, I didn't know how to train. I didn't know my limits. And that's where Lance, was very much the director and the coach and helped me learn about myself and about my skills and my abilities. And, but as I got older and I learned my skills and I learned how to train, he kept teaching me, and he also kept learning. A good coach never thinks they know everything, because things always evolve. And so Lance has also evolved as a coach, and he's gained more skills. So together we've raised our levels, both me as an athlete and him as a coach. And we've had our ups and downs, and I've had, bad races and struggles and injuries but in any important relationship in your life, if you work on it and you accept your deficiencies and you're willing to work on them, it can still be positive. And so Lance and I, we've worked through those things, and we've continued to get better and better. And I'm still, at the age of 38, hitting new personal records in training and in what I'm doing. And it's evolved from Olympic racing. I'm not doing short stuff anymore. I retired after the London Olympics, but now I'm doing a new sport and still pushing limits. And that for me, to share that with the same coach and develop through, doing super sprint triathlon when I was a little kid to now doing Ironman. It's a huge evolution, but it's been fun to share it with the same person and go through the ups and downs, and we understand where we come from. And, and it's not as though we haven't worked with other coaches either. When I was racing on the national team had a coach, and I did that program with the guidance of Lance, and we've cooperated with other, coaches, both in cycling, swimming, and running. And, so we learn from others as well.
Wow. And you say Ironman, but it's not just Ironman. You went to the Olympics in London, and you're also at Kona for the 4th time this year. So it's not like you're just doing an Ironman event. You're going to the Super Bowl of Ironman, and the London Olympics is the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only 2 athletes in the world that have a gold medal from the Olympics and have won Kona, I think.
No, there's only one. Jan's the only gold medalist from an Olympics to go to win Kona.
I thought it was Macaulay Jones as well.
McKeely, I believe, had a silver medal.
Okay.
So there's 2 medalists, two medalists from the Olympics that have won a Kona Ironman World Championships. It's rare air, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's very rare air.
So
you're going after this, and that is amazing. So let's just kind of transition a little bit, and being that we already established your experience, your coach, all that, let's actually talk a little bit about your training. Going into this race at Kona, what workouts did you want to have under your belt before you towed the line at Kona within the time of Whistler and Kona?
Well, I do typically, in the last 10 years, I do most of my sort of long, training camps on Maui. I've been coming here for 10 years, and I always do my winter training block here. And then I've come here to do my Kona block as well. I'm currently on Maui for the last day, and then I'm heading home tonight. But, so typically my big workouts in preparation for Kona have always been on Maui. And there's unique terrain here, for training. The climate is similar, but there's unique terrain. And one of the most important workouts that I do is, I have the opportunity here. You can ride up to 10,000 feet over 36 miles. And over the years, I've done done that climb up Haleakala, and it's amazing the fitness I gain from doing that long a sustained climb, and all while also being in the heat. Obviously, as you get up towards 10,000 feet, it's cooler, but starting at the lower elevations, it's hot, and then basically it's for me it's about just under a 3-hour climb up to 10,000 feet. So for me, it's actually a really great simulation of the effort required for an Ironman. And obviously, as you get higher in elevation, it's getting harder and harder because of the altitude. So it's similar to an Ironman bike. As you go through it, it's only getting tougher. You're only getting more fatigued. And so mentally and physically, riding from 0 to 10,000 feet it's a really good challenge, but it's a really good simulation of the effort. And so for me, each year, doing that workout is, it's one of those ones that, it's going to give you a lot of fitness, it's going to challenge you, but it really does pay off. And we do variations of it. This year we did some flat time trialing, on the lower levels in the heat, to simulate, just some hot, flat rolling riding. And then instead of riding up to 10,000 feet, I actually only rode up to 6,500 feet. So essentially I did 2 hours on the flat and then 2 hours of climbing. And, it's so a version of that we always do in a block for Ironman. And then we typically do a run off of that. And that varies from, mile repeats or a straight, 10 to 15 kilometer run. So that big transition workout is really that's the one that I do to get ready for Kona.
Wow. So overall in the whole year, just in training and not in racing, what's your longest swim, bike, and run workouts?
I do a fair bit of volume, swimming. I work with, an open water, swim coach in Victoria, Ron Jacks, and, he's coached, Richard Weinberger to silver medal at the Olympics in London. So, the open water swimmers typically do 8 or 9K, workouts. And so when I'm training with them, I get a variation of that. But, so I'm usually swimming, with Ron, 6 kilometer workouts. I don't do that every day, but, my sort of big volume are, 6 to 7K workouts. And then cycling, regularly do 4-5 hour rides. So depending on the terrain, sometimes, if I'm riding the flats here on Maui, you're hitting 150 kilometers or, even up to 180 in 5 hours. But if I'm riding at home in Victoria where it's, sharp undulating roads and it's windy and, then your average speed comes down and it's more about, the muscle endurance, during that. And so the distance is less, but,
So are you doing a lot of bricks then?
We typically are, pretty much almost off of all my long rides, I'm doing some sort of brick run. Even if it's just getting off and running 20 minutes aerobically. We just find that just consistently hitting on that, and I've been doing it for 20 years now. So I know how to run off the bike, but it's just continually, reminding your body, the muscle memory, the feeling of getting off the bike and just getting your leg turnover going. And, whether it's going to be a 20-minute run or whether it's going to be 10 by a mile, it's just, we find that the more frequently we do it, the easier it is. And you stay in touch with it. So we, and then, we have our major brick workouts where the intensity on the bike is up, but the volume's down. And then you're doing harder running off the bike. But pretty much after all my base rides, I'm doing some sort of run off.
Okay.
And yeah.
Now, are you using power, heart rate? What does this look like?
Yeah, I've been using power on the bike for years now. And just, basically since it was first available, I was using it. So it's been interesting over my career. Basically power's been available for, I guess basically 15 years or so, plus or minus, and just seeing the evolution of the availability of power and the access to it. And, and where it's, it's in pedals, it's in cranks, and it's in the wheels, and now, it's much easier to find. And so I've always used it. It's always been a great tool. And now you can get power on the run. And, I've got my new Polar watch, which has power built into the watch, so you don't even have to have another, device on you.
I knew about the Stride power meter, but I didn't realize that Polar had it built into the watch. What is this like training with that? Because I've never even heard of this before. This is something new.
Yeah, well, they just released it pre-Kona this year. So it's a brand new system that's out there. They've obviously taken the same sort of technology that's in the Stride power meter, but they've incorporated it into the watch, because watches now they've become so advanced in what they can offer, that it really is. I think it's, I was sitting with a friend of mine trying to figure out, well, how have they done this? But it's really just a system of math, because they obviously, they can pick up cadence now through a watch. So it's obviously, it's capable of, it's either got an accelerometer in it and it's using GPS. So if you work out what power equals, which is distance, time, and duration, if you just put the equation together, all of the elements are there. So they just had to come up with the algorithm to figure it out. And so Polar has now a watch that can measure your power.
Is that what you train off of on the run?
So yeah, so now it's obviously it's new to me, and it's just like when I first got power on the bike 15 years ago, I now have power on the run. So I'm now, that's the thing. After 20 years of racing as a professional, I have this new tool that I have to figure out how to use, how to implement it into my training, how to, then dictate my training based off of it. So it's been, that's a great thing about, sport and the combination of technology is you're always learning stuff. Before it was like, oh, we've got heart rate. We can now, measure our heart rate, and now we've got power, and those things together can really direct your training and your recovery. And so I'm still just kind of figuring out what my power ranges are on the run. And, so we're downloading all the files, Lance and I, and, and we're not quite dictating workouts on the run by power, because we don't have enough, knowledge about it yet. But we're starting to get parameters now and guidelines. And, obviously through the winter now, we're going to be looking at it more closely and then figuring out, okay, let's use this new tool that Polar is offering us into our training. And, it's just, that's the thing with power. It's a finite number. Regardless of how you feel, your emotional state, your heart rate, the hill, the downhill, it doesn't matter. The power is power. It's a number that states your output. And that's what's so great about power. And you can tell what's happening in your training based on that number, because it doesn't change. It's what's coming. It's what's your ability that is coming out.
It doesn't fluctuate at all.
No. And so if you're feeling crappy and you're pushing less watts, well, you're pushing less watts. So yeah, you're feeling crappy. But if you're feeling crappy and you're pushing the same amount of watts when you're feeling great, then it doesn't matter. You're just mentally not feeling good, but the numbers are there. And that's why it's such a good tool, because it takes the guesswork out of perceived effort. Now, listening to your body and listening to perceived effort is important, but sometimes you just need to get the work done regardless of how you're feeling. And that's where power comes in. And you can just go, I got to ride these hill repeats at 400 watts, regardless of how good or bad it feels, because that's what my level is. That's where I'm at. And then likewise, when you're building through training, you can dictate how you build based on your power. And so, you can do tests and say, okay, we're in January. your power limit's now at 300 watts. So let's build up from there. And, so the same is going to go for the run now is you can have that finite number that you can say, well, my heart rate's higher, my heart rate's low, or, I'm now pushing up power more efficiently. And it's pretty cool.
Wow. So mainly we're talking about training a little bit. How do you mitigate the risk of injury as volume and intensity increases so much, because you're training quite a bit? How many hours a week are you training at the most, do you think?
That's the thing. I'm not a high hour trainer. There's different, there's all, obviously in coaching, there's all different perspectives. Lance and I have typically not done, we go through phases of high volume, or high number of hours. But typically we don't do enormous hourly training per week. So, my biggest week, my very biggest week would probably be 30 hours. Now, on regular, week to week training, it's probably between 20 and 25.
Okay. So with this, how are you mitigating the risk of injury as volume and intensity peaks out at 30 hours throughout the training year?
So, the important thing is listening to your body. And, sometimes you got to back off when it's, it's not feeling good. And again, that's where heart rate and power and perceived effort used together can tell you, okay, I'm trying really hard, but my heart rate's low and my power's low. The numbers just aren't coming. So I got to back off. The other thing is making sure you take care of your body and just getting, for me, throughout my years, I worked with great therapists, that have kept my body in shape and working smoothly. And, I've worked with the same chiropractor, ART therapist, naturopath, and medical doctor for better part of 10 years now. And then, it's taking care of the muscles, but then it's also taking the time to recover. And, there's so many tools out there to help you with that. And I've, being on the national team, we've been able to do testing, and then, being in a sport like triathlon, which is always looking at technology and advancement in, performance, but also recovery. There's things like Normatec and, creams like Amp Human that help you buffer lactic acid and recover from those things. Those are partners that I've got that they're concerned about my performance and getting the most out of me. And they help me by not making me necessarily perform better, but recover better. I've got compression clothing and all that stuff.
Yeah. I've never heard of the Amp Human Performance with the lactic acid. That's kind of Greek to me. What is this?
Well, that's something it's quite new as well. And again, just this cool thing about our sport and cool thing about sport in general, about pushing the human limits. You've got companies that want to help you do that. And that's their sole concern, is how can we push harder and faster? And so, Amp Human Performance, what they've done is they've identified, okay, well, a lot of the restriction in training is it's recovery, but it's what your body produces that prevents you from performing. And, when you're doing hard workouts, your body becomes acidic and it produces lactic acid, and that slows your recovery. And it also, while you're in the workout, slows your ability to recover from the rep or limits how hard you can continue to push. So Amp HP, what they've done is they've identified, okay, well, lactic acid can be buffered with something basic, which is, basically, I'm drawing a blank right now.
On the scale of the scale of acidic and base, it would be more base.
It'd be more base. And so it's about buffering the acid, the pH level. And now what they've done is they've put it in a cream, which you can apply to your muscles, your major muscle groups that are obviously doing the work. And that's absorbed into the muscle so that it has more basic solution to buffer the acid. So you can use it before a workout, so that it's actually in there for when you're doing the workout, but then also after the workout, when you have all that lactic acid moving around your body, you put it on after, and it helps you then buffer the acid out. Sodium bicarbonate. That's what I was trying. Sodium bicarbonate.
So now, go ahead.
So for years, like the idea of sodium bicarbonate has been around for years. Track cyclists have, basically drank sodium bicarbonate before they get on the track and do all out efforts, right? Track cycling it's all just, sprinting and complete lactic acid producing. And so the problem with taking sodium bicarbonate is it has GI issues as an effect. So when you're doing a 4-minute or 1-minute track cycling event, well, the GI issues aren't a problem because you can get off of the track and go to the bathroom. But when you're in an endurance event, you can't ingest orally sodium bicarbonate because you've got to race for 8 hours. So Amp Human said, okay, well, how do we get sodium bicarbonate into the body without causing GI issues? Well, and that's where they came up with a cream that you apply topically. And so, all of these things that either speed what your body naturally does, Normatec, it compresses, the blood in your legs back up to your heart and then recirculates it. So your body would normally do that, but Normatec just does it quicker and does it more repetitions per hour, per minute, because you're using a system to aid your own. Your body does buffer lactic acid itself, but it takes longer and it requires more from your body. So Amp Human assists that by giving it to you. And it's the same with, nutrition. Your body needs fuel and it will find fuel to recover. But if you give it the fuel, then it doesn't take it from yourself. So, when you're doing long hours of training, you're going to burn fat, you're going to burn muscle tissue, you're going to get leaner and leaner, you're going to get lighter and lighter. And then eventually you're going to sort of cannibalize yourself. And that's where nutrition is so important, is you want to not deteriorate yourself from training. You want to give it what it needs to recover. And so, that's where nutrition companies come in. F2C provides me the products that my body could come up with and I could get from regular food, but it does it in a faster way so that I can the next day be ready to do another hard workout. And that's kind of like the body on a natural state of exercise gets and can do whatever it needs on its own. It doesn't need all these recovery tools. It doesn't need all the supplements. It doesn't need all the nutrition. But when you're pushing the limits, when you're trying to see how hard, how fast you can go, and you're doing it day after day, that's where these things become more important, because you need to recover quicker so that you can continue to push yourself.
Right. So a few things on this. So there's obviously so much doping in sport in general. How do you navigate the doping issue with something like AMP? Because this is almost giving you an unfair advantage for those that don't actually know the science behind it. What do you say to that?
Well, that's again, it's an important subject, and and that's where you look at WADA and you look at Informed Sport and you look at these agencies that test all of these products, and they verify whether there's a performance enhancement, illegal performance enhancement from them, and if they contain illegal performance enhancing supplements or ingredients or anything like that. And so as an athlete, it's our responsibility. It's not the company's responsibility. It's our responsibility to know what products we're using and whether they're legal to use. So the company can say, oh yeah, no, our stuff is clean and it's totally fine for you to use. And it could have an ingredient in it that's banned. They don't have to test it if they don't want to. It's up to them. So as an athlete, you have to take responsibility. And so for me, I don't use any products that have not been tested or not verified by WADA or Informed Sport. Those are the only products I trust. because that company has taken the time, they've spent the money to go and get everything tested, start to finish, in how they produce. Some companies, they make, products that are fine and clean to use, but then they also make other nutrition products that aren't fine and clean to use. And now they're not necessarily performance enhancing supplements or drugs, but they can contain ingredients that we're not allowed to use. Right. And then you get the opportunity of cross-contamination. So the best way to avoid that is only use companies that have had their process of making the product, their facility, and the product all tested. And that's what Informed Sport does. They don't just test the product, they test the system for making the product. And that's why I can trust companies that have tested with Informed Sport.
So, being that you're in Canada, I know just from my personal experience that, I'm not going to say the FDA here in America is a joke, but it's not as strict and it doesn't have the scrutiny that Canada does. And then Informed Sport is taking that to another level, and F2C went through all that.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. The FDA and the Canadian, Food Association, they're just testing to see if the general public is safe to eat products. They have nothing to do with sport. So the FDA approving some product means absolutely nothing for an athlete. All they're saying is this won't kill you or cause cancer. That's it. So any supplement that has FDA approval doesn't mean that it's doesn't have a banned substance in it. So that's where Informed Sport and WADA and those agencies, their sole concern is products used for sport performance and testing those and whether they have banned substances in them. So counting on your own country's food representative body, that doesn't mean anything because that's just for the general public. The general public's not getting tested for testosterone and EPO and, whatever else. So it doesn't really matter. So that's the key is when you're looking at products and you're looking to have clean products, those international organizations, they're testing for the whole world, not just each country. So if a company is taking the time to go to the international body to get their product cleared, then they're doing their due diligence, and they care about their athletes and they want to help their athletes perform, but they don't want to use any banned substance to do it.
Wow. So being that you've been in this sport for over 20 years, obviously now, is that one of the reasons why you picked F2C as a nutrition?
Yeah, definitely. All the products I've used over the years, it's important to know that it's clean and you know that you never have to worry about when you're getting a drug test. Well, I bought that, protein supplement off the shelf that I'm not sure, it says it doesn't have anything in it, but I don't know about the company or, and that's, back when I was a kid and, when I wasn't sponsored, I had to buy products and I had to be careful what I bought, and now when I have partners that I work with, I won't work with a company it's not certified. It's not, I can't live with that risk. I can't live with that worry. So, F2C took the time to do the testing so that I could have confidence in the product, that I can use all of these products and not ever worry when I get drug tested. And we get drug tested all throughout the year. They show up at my door, they knock on the door at 6 a.m, wake me up, I get up, I do my test, and it's a complete relaxed interaction because I know I'm taking clean products and there's nothing for me to worry about.
Wow. So to transition just a little bit, being that we're going to be talking about Kona here, just to talk a little bit more about your training. You're training between 20 and 30 hours on average. You have a girlfriend. You don't really have a job other than training. So how are you balancing life, work, and training? Because you obviously want to do something other than train all the time, and you want to have some kind of social life. How do you balance all this?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because as you spend a long time in sport, you'd meet different athletes and that require different things and their lives are different. And, I have, friends that when I was on the national team, they were at university full time and, or you have friends that they work full time or they work part time or they run companies or, it's everybody has a different way of finding their balance. And for me, I've always just loved this sport, wholly and completely. And I like everything about it, and being immersed in it, works for me. And so I've never felt like I need a distraction or I need something else to take my mind off of it. But I also have the ability to turn my mind off from it. I can finish a workout, can write the info down, log my training, be critical about it, and then I can move on. If it went poorly, I can go and turn it off and go, okay, that workout is done. It didn't go well or it went really well, but now what do I got tomorrow? Okay, good. And then I can sit down at dinner and hang out with Carolyn, and it doesn't weigh on me. I'm able to kind of let it go. Whereas some people can't do that. They stew and they dwell about the workout. And so if they don't have a distraction, it ends up being too much of a burden. And so I had a friend on the national team where he raced better when he was going to university because it got him away from training, because otherwise he would just spend too much time thinking about it and overdoing it. And so, and some people are, like that. They need a part-time job so that they, can have something that takes them away from it. I like doing other things. I'm really into, home repair and stuff like that. So, we just bought a new house this year, and it's a complete original 1980 house. So, like me, it's 38 years old. So it needs some work to be done. And, I enjoy doing that, and I enjoy working with my hands and putting in, the hard work. And, so for me, that's, if I do need a distraction, it's definitely there with the old house. So, and then balancing work with friends, and that kind of stuff is, it's hard sometimes, like you have friends that, when they're done work, they go home and they're done work, and, they don't have to work on the weekends. And, I've got buddies that I play poker with, and, it'd be great to, be able to go weekly and play poker to 11 p.m. at night. But I can't. I got to get home. I got to get to bed, and I got workout the next day. And, but that's with any job, there's sacrifice, and I've chosen a unique job that I love to do that has its own challenges and its own lifestyle that's required. And there's pluses and minuses, and that's, I accept that. And, at times it's hard. I'm supposed to be going to, Lance's 50th birthday, trip down in Moab mountain biking. But I have to miss it because I have to recover and I have to train and get ready for my races. I would love to go and do that trip. It would be a lot of fun, but that's just part of it. And I can't regret it. I miss it, but this is the job. This is the path. This is what my passion is. And when you get to do your passion for a job, those sacrifices that you have to make, they're a little bit easier to make because you go, I love what I do. And this is just part of it.
So it seems like you use a lot of time management skills coupled with having a priority list of what you really hold dear to you and what you stand for and what you want to do.
Definitely. And, and then there's a time and a place as well. And, I have an off season, and for me, it's important to really have an off season where I completely shut off. I don't do any training. I don't have any goals, fitness wise. That time is key. And that's why I've been able to race for 22 years, because I take that time away to just, completely work on the house and not worry about what workout I have, or just to go away with Carolyn and not think about training, or to hang out with friends and have a beer and not worry about, well, how's this beer going to affect my workout tomorrow? That time is what keeps me rejuvenated. And because I miss those things, but there is a time that I get to do them. And so when you take those breaks, it kind of refreshes you and goes, okay, I love what I do. I still get some time with my friends and get to have a bit of normal life. But then you get back to work and you get to carry on. And, so it's a unique job, but it's definitely, for me, it's worth it.
Wow. You get to actually put on a normal watch for a change and not wear your Polar watch all the time.
Exactly.
Like my wife gives me a little bit of crap every now and then because it's like, I bought you this watch. You never wear it. Well, wearing.
Well, it doesn't give me my heart rate. So come on. It just tells the time. What kind of watch only tells you one thing?
Exactly. Man. So you mentioned some sacrifices that you have to make along the way in the season. What is this like for you? What sacrifices are most difficult for you in the season?
I think for me, it's time with family and friends. I come from a really close family where we spend a lot of time together. I have an older brother and he's got a family of 5 and, he's father to 2 twin girls, a son and a wife. And, so the 5 of them are, they're fun to be with. And I love spending time with my family. And obviously I don't get to do it as much as I'd like. And, they live in Chilliwack, which is on the mainland, and I live on the island. My parents live on the island, so I get to see my parents, regularly. And, but I don't get to do, holidays with the family. And, we have a cabin that, my brother and the whole family, they all go up in the summer and hang out and just have a great time on the lake. And I used to do that, when I was a kid, and I have great memories of that. And I still try and get up there, but it's sort of shorter periods of time. I get up there for a couple of days, and while I'm there, I still have to go out and train. And, so for me, it's not being able to have as much time for family and friends. And, I really care about my friends, and, I like being there for people, and I still am always there, but it's just sometimes it's not in person. And, I love, FaceTime with people, and, so much of life now is digital, and, it's not in person, and, that's the way it goes. But I do like in-person time. And when you're traveling a lot, you don't get as much of that.
Wow. So to kind of shift it a little bit, being that I know that you live in Canada, up on the western side of Canada, and you're going to go to Maui a few weeks before Kona's actual race. When did you start traveling to Maui to start training there and get on that time zone and then head to the actual Kona and get situated on Kona? What was all that like for you?
Yeah, I've been coming to Maui for about 10 years now to do training camps and prep camps. The reason I do that is because it is actually a fairly easy trip. It's 3 hours different. And at a different part of the year, through daylight savings, actually only 2 hours. So it's not a huge time zone change. It's not a big, travel. So it's actually pretty easy for me. It's more just adjusting to the climate. And, and I've got a friend here that I live with that's, I got a room and I got a garage full of my crap. And so it's really just coming back to a second home. So the actual transition to coming to Hawaii is actually pretty easy. So it takes me, basically a couple of days to, adjust, and then I'm set. And that's why I come to Maui before Kona, because I am so well set up here and I know the training and, I've got everything here. So basically this year I came, to Maui September 7th or 15th. And then I basically trained here up until race week. And I flew over to Kona on the Tuesday before the race. Cause again, it's a 45-minute flight from Maui to Kona. So it's easy travel. So I can roll in race week and it's no big deal. It takes, all the stress out of traveling to the event. So it makes it pretty easy. I'm used to the climate, the time zone, food, water, all that kind of stuff. And then it's a short trip over to Kona. And so it's worked out really well. And, so that's why I kind of have done that the last 4 years.
Wow. So I know you're on QR right now. You went through a red one and now you're on a black one as well. How hard is this to get your bike from Canada to Maui to Kona? You talk to any cyclist, it's probably the bane of their existence is traveling with their bike. Nobody likes traveling with their bike. And that's like, I have not traveled with my bike 2 times in my life. That's it, on a plane. That's, I only fly because I'm going to a race or I'm going to training. I don't do, that's the thing. That's the life of an athlete is, I don't travel unless it's business. And, and I travel, cause I travel so much with business, I don't do more traveling for pleasure, right? Because I want to spend time at home. So there's only been 2 times in my life where I've been able to walk on with a carry-on and not have had a stupid bike to drag through the airport and argue with the, check-in person that it's too big or it's too heavy and it's going to be twice the price of your plane ticket just to get a bag on the plane. And, traveling with a bike, that's one thing I will love to give up when I retire is, being able to get on a plane and not have to deal with a stupid bike and, just packing it and tearing it down and putting it back together. And, you get good at it. And I did a blog on it once and it's like, I've been doing it for 25 years. I've been packing and unpacking a bike. And yes, I could do it faster, but it still takes me the same amount of time that I did when I first started because I just don't like doing it. And so it's like one of those things like you procrastinate and you're like, oh, okay, well, I'll take the stem off and then I'll have a, sip of my drink and my coffee and, maybe I'll go get a snack now and okay, now I'll take the wheels off and I'll clean the chain and, oh, well, no, I got that email I need to do. And, I can literally pack a bike in probably 15 minutes if I had to, but it always takes an hour and a half. So it's just one of those things. Nobody likes it, but it's just, you got to do it. And so you pack it up and you pad it because, it's got to get there in one piece, because that's how you do your job. So, I've been fortunate that, I've only had a few minor issues during travel with my bikes and, my QR, it's actually really easy to take apart. You need 2 Allen keys to take the whole entire thing apart. You need a 4 mil and a 5 mil Allen key. Actually I've got through axles now, so I need a 6 mil. So a 4, 5 and a 6 mil Allen key and I can tear the thing down. So that's really nice. It does make traveling a little bit easier when your bike's easy to pack up and, you can get it there safe and sound. Wow. So whenever you get to Kona, what are you getting for lodging? Do you get a rental car and an Airbnb? Are you getting a hotel? What does this look like? Hey, everybody. I just want to say thank you for listening to the podcast. And I just want to let you know that I've enjoyed having so many people on this show. And I couldn't really do it without your support. Thank you so much for tuning in, listening, and being a part of what I'm doing. If you would, take a few moments to leave me a review over on iTunes. It would help me out tremendously. And enjoy the show. Wow. So whenever you get to Kona, what are you getting for lodging? Do you get a rental car and an Airbnb? Are you getting a hotel? What does this look like?
I've done a few things over the last 4 years. The first 2 years we stayed down in Ali'i, in like either a timeshare or condo kind of thing. And then we just found that it was so hard to move along the Leahy. It's hot, and it's just, if you're trying to drive anywhere, it takes you forever. And, so then I got a scooter, so that made it a little bit easier to get around, but then it's still just a pain. So then we figured out, okay, well, if we stay up country above all the mess, then it's easy to get to because nobody's going up there. So there's no traffic going up there, and it's a little bit cooler. You don't need air conditioning. You can kind of just hang out, and it's a nice temperature. So for the last 2 years, we've been staying at basically 1,500 feet above sea level, and basically just straight up Palani up onto the upper highway. And it literally, I think we're 6 miles from town, and we used to stay 1 mile from town on a Leahy. We can get into town quicker being 6 miles away than being on a Leahy.
Really?
So, yeah, because the Leahy is, there's all the stop signs, there's all the traffic, there's all the cyclists, all the runners just creeping along. And so you're trying to get to the pier to do a swim, and it literally takes you 15 minutes or more to go along the Leahy 1 mile. And then you got to try and find parking and all of that. Whereas we just drive down Palani, no traffic, all the way down, and then hop out at the pier, go swim.
Wow.
So we figured that out. We're like, yeah, this is killer. So we booked the exact same place. It's a hobby goat farm. Hobby goat farm. And so we can see Kona from our front patio, and with goats in between. So it's patio, goat field, Kona in the distance, and it's just awesome. It's just super quiet. It's chill up there.
The excitement and anxiety is in the distance.
Yeah, and it's there when you need to go down and do it, and but then I can also drive. I can drive down. I can't remember the name of the road, but you can just basically drive straight down to the Queen K, avoid Palani and town altogether. And then I can ride out where it's safer. There's the big shoulder. There's not all the lights. So it's perfect. It's out of all the mess, and it's cool. It's safe. It's relaxed, and yeah, it's the way to go.
Wow.
So hopefully everybody doesn't rent our place. we're gonna book it right now. Yes.
Man. So after you actually get to your Airbnb, you get checked in and relaxed, settled in, you're building your bike. I know that you have the new QR that has the disc brake, just like Matt Hansen has, right?
Yep.
So how do you like the disc brake, and was it hard getting the right wheels for this? What was this like?
No, I was actually really excited to switch over to the disc brakes. Obviously, racing Xterra and mountain biking and all that. I've been riding disc brakes for forever as far as mountain goes, and it just changed the sport obviously for mountain biking, and I don't believe it's as important or life changing for the road, but it is so much nicer. It just for comfort and ease of use, ease of maintenance, modulation, it's just way better, and I live in Victoria, BC, where we don't really get snow. We just get a lot of rain and grit and grime in the winter. And I like training outside, even when it's poor conditions. And so, I do 4 or 5 hour rides in the rain, and, there's salt and sand and crap all over the road. And so you get back from a 5 hour ride, you're absolutely filthy. Your bike is just covered. And then you gotta, you used to have to lube the cables and clean the cables and the shift cables and the brake cables, and the pads were worn out in one ride. So now it's literally everything is enclosed. I got hydraulic brake lines. I've got electronic shifting with Shimano, and, basically I got to clean and lube the chain, and that's it. As far as wear and tear, disc brake pads last way longer in poor conditions. They work no matter what, so when I'm riding in the rain, I'm much safer because I can stop when I need to. I can,
because it's an actual brake surface versus the actual rim.
Yeah, the rim, which is covered in water and sand, and and then the pads, which are a composite of essentially rubber or cork. Disc brake pad is like car brakes. It's metal on metal that as soon as you start braking, it's actually braking. It's not just sliding and cleaning off grime and dirt. So for safety and ease of training, it's night and day. I'm with Easton Wheels and Components, and they've been strong into the disc brake market for, kind of almost ahead of the curve. Their wheels were pre-designed to be disc brake, but they came out with all of their aero wheels as rim brake, with the idea that, we want them. Yeah, we want them to be disc brake, but the industry isn't quite there. And so their Aero 85 wheel, which I raced on in Kona, front and rear, was engineered to be a disc brake wheel. And so it was just a matter of time till they thought, okay, the industry is there. Let's put our disc brake hub on it, which is just awesome. And then there you go. And so, the whole industry is catching up now. The aerodynamics of it, I think, are moot. Whether rim brakes or disc brakes, which are faster, I think it's so close. It doesn't really matter. So, it comes down to, okay, well, how does the wheel perform? What can you do with a wheel now that you don't have to have the rim be the braking surface? So that's where I think it's really going to evolve in the next few years is, they're able to take weight out of the rim because it doesn't have to be as strong to hold a braking surface. So the actual circumference of the wheel is going to be lighter, which means it's going to roll faster. It means they can do different shapes and things with the rim that they otherwise wouldn't be able to now that they have disc rims, or disc brake wheels. So it's going to be interesting to see again with the technology, how things change, so for me, it's an easy swap. QR had a great bike aerodynamically to add the disc brakes to, and then I had a great set of wheels just instantly to swap over to. So for me, it was just kind of a no-brainer, easy switch, great bike, great wheels, no problem. The QR, they've got the rear, non-drive side chainstay. That's, it's that sort of wide body, stay, which actually essentially hides the whole entire caliper and rotor. So aerodynamically, the QR just kind of got a huge bump when they actually switched comparatively to another bike that had disc brakes. So, so for me, it's been a great move, and, it's been great all race season, but I'm really looking forward to this year's winter training season. Be able to do those long rides and just come home, hose the bike off, lube the chain, and then it's going to be ready to go the next day. Cause, when you've been riding in the rain for 5 hours and then you go out for a 30-minute transition run and then you come back and you're like, and you got to clean your bike for the next hour. That's not fun. It just makes, makes it, that
more hectic.
Yeah. And, so ease of use in training is, that's a big thing for me.
Wow. So after you get all checked in, your bike put together, all this fun stuff, you head down and you get checked in on Wednesday or Thursday. What was the atmosphere like this is the 40th year anniversary of Ironman Kona, and you're here for the fourth time? Is it bigger and better than last time you were here, or is it about the same? What was the atmosphere there like?
Yeah, I think it's, it was a little bit different being the 40th anniversary. I think it's, any anniversary, it's just a unique experience. A lot of the past winners over the last 40 years were there. And, so it was neat for people to, see some of the, the historical winners and, Scott Molina and, those guys. And it's, so there's definitely a little bit different vibe there. But at the end of the day, Kona is, the pinnacle of our sport, and it's a big show and a big event every year, and it's very consistent, and I think it's been very consistent for the 4 years that I've been doing it. And then I think, probably for the last 10 or 15 years, it's been, very consistent. I think the industry of Ironman, has developed more, like the interbike sort of experience of Kona, I think, has developed. A lot of companies, this is where they reveal their bikes and, their advances in their technology and stuff like that, because interbike's actually reduced in that way. And so Ironman, in Kona is really the display time, for your products. And so it's always neat to go to Kona and walk through the expo and see some of the new companies and the new advancements and stuff like that, and just see the evolution of the tech in our sport.
Wow. So you get checked in. What was the check-in process like here at Kona?
It's pretty low key. I usually leave it sort of a little bit later in the week. So I either go down just before our pro briefing, or the day before. And basically, we have a separate line, which is nice. But, every time I've gone in, there's no lineup for the amateurs either. And so you just kind of roll in and you sign your forms and you get your gear bag and you get your poster. And this year it was neat to get the 40th anniversary poster. And, it's going to be something to look back on when, I've got kids and, family and stuff like that. And just look at all the years that I've raced there. And, you get these kind of mementos and stuff like that. And, I got, actually checked in, and I had the same lady that I checked in with the year before, and she remembered me. And so it's pretty cool, when you have all these volunteers that, they give a lot of their time, and it takes a lot of volunteers to put these races on, and they just keep coming back. And, and then you get some that, they remember you and they're like, oh, hey, great to see you again. And, I remember you from last year. And, then, I have your name, and, so it's a fun experience. And that's really when you start to get excited about the race. It's like, okay, and now I got my registration done, I got my wristband on, things are, winding down to that go time. And, and then the next step is obviously the pro briefing, which is 2 days out. And that's where, I see who's showing up, and, everybody's kind of looking. Yeah. Who's signed in, who's on the board. Everybody's looking each other up and down and looking, you're looking fit, you're looking tan, you're looking, this or that. And, so it's always, it's always neat. A lot of times it's just in good fun, and you're razzing each other and stuff like that. And, but it's, it's good to see everybody, it's everybody's big goal for the year. And so you're always happy to see when that sign-in board is full. Unfortunately this year there was, I had teammates that were on that board, and they didn't have their signatures beside their name. Trenzo and Ben Hoffman, teammates from Bahrain Endurance, good buddies of mine. And, unfortunately they weren't able to sign in, and that's, it sucks. And, but that's the life of an athlete. You have ups and downs, and you have injuries, and, so you kind of see those things, and then you do the race briefing. And again, it just gets one more step more real and excitement. They're going over the course, they're going over anything they've changed. This year we had a new run course. So that was kind of a big discussion topic. Why do they do it, and what, how is it going to affect the race? And, so it was, so this year was quite unique, and it was neat because you had something else to kind of think about and put into your plan, because the change, it wasn't just, a minor change. They took the course from one area and put it in the complete opposite end. So basically they shortened the Alihi Drive section, and they added it basically before and after the Energy Lab. And, and everybody knows the history around the Energy Lab, and, how difficult it is there. And so all of a sudden you have more time out there. So a lot of people, we're talking about, well, how is that going to change the race? And you personally have to go, okay, well, how is that going to change my nutrition plan, my pacing plan? A lot of people, if they find a Leahy, gives them a lot of energy because there's lots of people there, and it's kind of undulating and flat, and
so it changes dynamics from what you've used in the past.
Yeah, and some people draw a lot from having people around and people cheering, and then some people, like for me, I find, like once I get into my marathon pace and into my focus, it's all in my head, and it's all just it's like I got walls up and I'm just rolling. And so for me, having more time out on the Queen K where I can be in my groove and in, my moment, I was like, yeah, that's okay for me. Unfortunately, I didn't get there, but, moving forward, what you have to do as an athlete, you have to, look at your race, look at what you can do better, look at what went wrong, and then look forward. So again, next year I'm looking forward to that new part.
Wow. So with the new change of the course, how did this affect your strategy of how you wanted to navigate your plan for race day?
So, the new run course, it meant more time out on the Queen K, and, typically it's a little bit more, it's more barren out there, and it's more time sort of by yourself because they actually stop, fans and people from going out in that section. Whereas a Leahy Drive, basically there's, essentially people all along it. So it's a lot more time just by yourself. And, and then it also opens up, so you can see way up the road, and you can see guys that you're, trying to chase down. And so for me, I was looking forward to that part. Typically my marathon is my strength, and, specifically the last 6 to 7 miles of the marathon are my strength. I'm typically very good at holding my pace right through to the end. And so I typically make a lot of time. Either I open up gaps or I bring people back in the closing 6-7 miles. So for me, that's that time, right there as you're heading. Time. Yeah, as you're heading into the energy lab, that's where okay, I'm going to start doing some damage here. And for me, in my first year racing there, where I came 9th, I basically, coming off of a Leahy and going along the Queen K, I was back in, I think I was 15th or 16th, and I just picked them off one at a time, and guys that had ran past me long before, all of a sudden I was running back past them, and, and so, Freddie Van Leer, he would, I was probably walking when he, went by me, because I was, doing hydration and cooling at the aid stations. And then I specifically remember running by him in the energy lab, and him kind of obviously in a world of hurt kind of go, what? And, mumbled to himself, like, where did this guy come from? Like, I passed him miles ago, and he was like next to nowhere. But I just stayed on my pace, and, and I didn't run fast that day. I think I ran 3:0 something, but what I started at the beginning, I maintained right till the end. And, and so for me personally, I still have to have that marathon in Kona, and that's kind of what I keep striving towards, and that's what keeps motivating me. And this new course was something that I liked, and it was going to be a great opportunity for me. And, so that's, for me, I look forward to getting there. Unfortunately, this year I didn't get to run that part. So that was really disappointing to, I got up Palani and I just started heading down onto the Queen K, and, just running down the hill. That's where, stuff really was just flared up. And I knew that if I kept going, I was going to end up with a long-term injury. And it was a really hard decision, but it was, I had, Lisa Bentley, my manager and multi-time Ironman winner, and, Kona podium, and my coach Lance up there. And, I was just kind of, this is where I'm at, guys, and I don't know. I'm really struggling right now, and I want to finish this thing, and this is what I do. And they, both supported me in my decision, and they're like, whatever you want to do, if you think you're going to be injured and it's going to hinder the rest of your season and you're not going to be able to, get to the finish line being healthy, then it's not worth it. And so I pulled out, and I didn't get to do my favorite part of the run. But that's how it goes.
Wow. So to kind of backtrack a little bit from that moment in time to the day before the race, what kind of hydration and nutrition plan are you trying to get in the day before the race as far as just a day-to-day nutrition plan goes?
Yeah. So, for me, I actually don't change a lot come race week. I really try and just, I eat healthy all the time. My partner, Carolyn, she's always sort of managed my day-to-day nutrition. She's actually studying holistic nutrition, and she's going to be a nutritionist. And so it's been a passion of hers, and making sure I stay fueled and healthy through what I eat has been a huge part of our partnership and my success. So, I eat healthy all the time. So come race week, it's just about maintaining that. It's about, just eating well, eating consistently, not changing what I eat, not eating a bunch of weird stuff that I don't normally do. The only thing I really change as I get closer to the race is just reducing the amount of fiber, in my diet, just to take the stress out of my, GI system. Typically all the nutrients you're tapering. So the training load isn't as high. You don't have the requirement on your nutrition and nutrients because your body, you're just not stressing your body as much. So a couple days out, you don't need that demand on your GI system to break down, a bunch of red meat or, a whole bunch of fiber. And it also just kind of slows my system down a little bit. So come race day, I don't have any GI issues, because there's not been strain on it. But I typically just eat rice and chicken and pasta, and keep things, just simple, keep my nutrients, my carb, my protein, and my fats up, and, nothing crazy. Eat food that I like to eat, and then the hydration and just making sure, obviously, and I've always got a bottle of, drink in my hand. The sodium levels are staying up, and, preloading. And then, come race day, then that's, you've got your specific plan for calories and sodium per hour. And, and I've tested that while I've been training on Maui. How many, calories you need. That's the unique thing about, being an athlete is your requirements, they're different for everyone. There's always guidelines, but there's a spectrum, of how many calories some people need and some people don't, how much sodium, there's so many factors in creating a race day nutrition plan and a training nutrition plan based on who you are and, what your sweat rate is, what your calorie burn rate is. All those things are unique to each person. So there isn't okay, if you're doing an Ironman, this is what you need to eat. You have to figure out what works for you. And then that changes per race that you do. If you're doing a hot, dry race, or you're doing a cool, dry race, or a cool, wet race, or a, hot, humid race, like every different race has a different demand on you. And so you need to know your body, and you need to know how it reacts in those different climates. And so,
even at different effort levels.
At different effort levels, for an Ironman versus a half Ironman, or a competitive, 20 guys in the front group Ironman versus a solo Ironman versus a group of 3 guys versus a race where you're having to chase, so even the race dynamic plays a part into your nutrition because you're burning more calories early because you're riding harder. or, you're riding more of a solo Ironman. So your heart rate's staying at a lower, more consistent level. And so you can take more calories. And, so learning all of that about your body is important, and then applying it to the actual race that you're in at the moment.
Wow. So to transition a little bit to the bike check-in and bag check, what are you putting in your bike and run bags and special needs if you're using them? And what's it like to check your bike in here?
Yeah, the final excitement point is checking your bike in the day before the event. After that, you're done. Basically you have to check in your transition bags. So basically all your kind of setup and your nutrition and all that stuff has to be sorted when you go and check in your bike. And that's one nice thing, with a 70.3, you can leave stuff last minute because you check in, you take your bike in the morning, or your transition bags or whatever. But for an Ironman and for Kona, that all has to be done ahead of time. So once you're checked in, you're all done. You go home and you relax and just get ready for the race. So the check-in is, it's a pretty big moment. You've had to spend the morning getting it all dialed in and making sure you've got, this and that, and your nutrition and your bags sorted. And, so for me, it's going over the checklist, making sure you've got what you think you need. And then for me, I always put in extra, because you never know what's going to happen. And I like to be prepared for anything. I don't ever plan on taking my special needs on the bike. I don't want to have to take something then, because especially in Kona, quite often that's a turning point in the race when you come back from Hawi. The group often splinters there. So if you're trying to grab a bag and pull stuff out and switch out bottles, meanwhile the group's attacking to head down, that's something that I don't want to have to do. Doesn't mean I don't put something in, because you never know what can happen. You end up hitting a bump, or you drop a bottle of nutrition or hydration. So I always have a backup plan. And for me, that's what special needs on the bike is. I don't plan on taking it, but if I were to drop my nutrition bottle or a hydration bottle, I've got an extra one in there, because if I go without it, I'm going to get dropped by that group anyways. So it's more important for me to take the time in special needs, make sure I have fuel to get me home, because if I don't, then I'm just going to blow up and the group's going to drop you anyways. So having a backup plan for me is always important. And then I do the same with my T2 or T1 bags is, just in case, have something there. So in my T1 bag, I always have a bottle of water, because as you get out of the salt water, quite often you've, drank some salt water, and all of a sudden you got this salty solution in your stomach. So I like to have a bottle of water, so that if I drank a whole bunch of salt water, I can chug down some water through transition as you're running, through the transition in Kona is quite long. So you've got time to do some stuff. I can drink some water, get my helmet on, get things sorted, get your suit put on if that's what you're doing. And just kind of analyze the situation and see where you're at. Again, I also put in, a gel in there, so that if I'm like, okay, that I ended up, having to really pin that swim, and, or I'm going to have to chase really hard, at the start of the bike, then, you might not have a chance to do your nutrition at the beginning of the bike. So it's being prepared for anything that can happen. And so I do that through my T1, T2 bags and my special needs bags, and just have extra things that you may or may not need.
Okay. So are you putting your shoes on your bike here?
Yeah. That's, we do have, some priorities as professionals and things we're allowed to do and not do. We're allowed to have our shoes on the bike, and we're allowed to have our helmets on the bike if we want. So, in Kona, things can be a little bit more streamlined, and, I've always, coming from ITU racing, you always have your shoes on the bike. So it's just kind of second nature for me, and that's how my bike's ready to go.
Okay. So I know you're racing the infamous red and white kit for Bahrain and had all your nice stuff on there, but over the years, have you tried to find a kit that fits you a certain way and gives you the right amount of comfort because, I mean, sitting on the bike for even 4.5 hours like you did here, you really have to be ready to be uncomfortable sitting on something really hard for a long time. How did you get to this point?
I think, it's, you want to be comfortable while you're racing. Obviously if you're chafing and stuff's not feeling good, then it makes a hard day even harder. So finding a suit that fits you well and is comfortable, I'm racing in a 2XU suit now that, it has flexibility. It can be custom altered. I actually use their stock size,
Really?
which fits me just awesomely. If I needed it to be different, we can make those changes. I just happen to have the body shape and size that fits that outfit. They have so many different sizes as well. They got double extra small all the way to double extra large. So somewhere in that range, you can find something that fits. So, I'm fortunate enough, that it fits me. And then we do the custom design and artwork. And, so it's been really fun, to do that and work with their design group. And, I've got a flying Honu, as I call it, a flying Honu. So Honu is the Hawaiian for turtle. And, Hawaii has been a big part of my career and life as a triathlete. And, and so the Honu I can also identify with because they're a long living, animal. And I've spent a lot of my life in this sport and there's ups and downs and you just have to be tough and you have to endure. And that's kind of what the Honu represents to me. And, the flying aspect of it is, BC, the bald eagle is, an animal that is dominant in BC and represents BC. And, that's important to me is where I'm from as well. So I have the eagle wings and the Honu that come together for the flying Honu, as a friend of mine called it. So it's neat to be able to incorporate that artwork into my uniform and sort of represents a little bit of who I am, where I'm from, what means, what things are important to me.
Wow. So as far as the day before the race, what time are you trying to go to bed? And what time did you want to get up?
I try and go to bed early. A lot of the time I don't sleep the night before a race anyways, but at least if I can get to bed early and get some sleep in, it's better, than none. But at the end of the day, my best races have almost always been off of no sleep. So, basically I try and, it's always important to get 2 nights out, a good night's sleep. So, races Saturday. So Thursday night, I'm logging 9-10 hours of sleep. And then Friday night, it doesn't really matter whether I sleep or not. It's just about, being on my back, resting and getting excited about the race. And then I typically get up, basically 3 hours before guns start. Cause I like to eat 2 hours before.
2 hours.
So yeah, 2 hours, make sure I, get digested. I get, anything out that I need to get out and, and then everything's kind of processed and then I snack, between that 2 hours and gun start. I take a gel, I have my drink. I've got calories in my drink from F2C and, so I am getting calories in, but at the end of the day, you're rested, you're tapered, you've got your body filled up on glycogen. So you don't need a ton to eat, but you need some calories. And that's why I like to eat 2 hours out and then it's digested.
What are you having as far as, do you have like oatmeal that you do? Do you pair this with coffee? What is this like for you?
Yeah, my morning breakfast is always oatmeal. It's usually either 1 or 2 eggs. I scramble them and then I have some coffee just to kind of move things along. And, and it's all simple. It's easy to make. You can find it anywhere. I travel with the oatmeal. It's just simple, easy and, digest easy.
Cool. So you get down in transition. Does Caitlin drop you off? Do y'all have to worry about parking? What is this like for you?
Yeah, no, that's the great thing about having Carolyn support me is she's there just to help me do whatever I need, and so we basically just drive straight down. She drops me off on the corner of Palani and Kuakini Highway, and basically I meet Lance there, and he grabs my bag for me. She goes, finds parking, and then we all head down, and I check my special needs bags and all that stuff, and then get numbered and head out onto the pier to get the rest of the stuff checked in for the race, and get your shoes on the bike and bottles filled and tires pumped, and then it's go time.
Wow. And you're only using 85 PSI here, which is a lot lower than most people use here, but you're using tubeless Easton wheels, and knowing that it's going to be really smooth roads. Ugh, can't talk. And is that why you chose to go a little bit lower? Because
yeah, they've done tons of studies now in the last 10 years of rolling resistance and tire pressures and stuff like that, and kind of the unanimous sort of decision is really high PSI isn't faster. People used to pump their tires up to 120, 140 PSI, and all that does is just make it uncomfortable. Now there's the arguments of, well, how low can you go and what is, optimal? And that is all very specific to the rim shape, the tire width, all those things. So without a ton of testing on just your system, you can't say, okay, 85 PSI is the way to go. But for my system, Easton wheels, the tires I'm running, tubeless, what I had been riding, 85 PSI is a nice neutral ground that for smooth surface, if it's super smooth like Kona, you could probably go a little bit more, or you could go less. So for me, I picked 85 PSI because it's a really nice, comfortable ride. Handling's great, and it's just smooth and fast. And, I'll do some further testing over the winter and, get, more specific, does 80 PSI go faster than 85, or does it just not really matter? So as long as I'm within a range.
And that's all depends on you, your fit, your bike, everything of just you.
Yeah. Your body weight, your bike weight, all of that affects your tire pressure, right? Because it's how the tire interacts with the road. So, somebody that's 200 pounds, it's going to be different for them than it is me. Or if their bike weighs 20 pounds and mine weighs 15 pounds, well, there's 5 pounds difference. So it's all it's like nutrition. It's all very specific to, you and your setup and how you're racing as well.
Right. So y'all go off, pretty early here in comparison to all the rest of the field here. After you get done in transition, you head down to the water to go ahead and get in and get positioned, basically. What was your anxiety level, excitement levels, your mindset going into this portion of the race?
This year I was really relaxed. That was kind of part of my plan for this year, was to, come into Kona ready, but relaxed, confident with what I had done to prepare, but also ready to enjoy the day and enjoy the lead up to it. And just, this is my job. This is what I choose to do. It's fun and I enjoy it. And I have to remember that. And I got to remember that, I love what I do and I not get too stressed out about it. And so this year, that's definitely, I wanted to go into, swim warm up and, just feeling relaxed and ready and enjoy what's about to happen. And, last year I got stung by a jellyfish warming up. And so at the end of the day, you never know what's going to happen. You never know how the day is going to end. You can have a plan for it, but until it's over, you just don't know. And so if you're not enjoying each moment as you go through it and as you lead up to it, then when it doesn't go well, then it's kind of like, well, how come I didn't enjoy the process more, so that at least I enjoyed it. I had a good time. And so this year, that's what I focused on, was enjoying the training, enjoying, working hard, enjoying the preparation, enjoying the process of getting there, and whatever happened on race day happened. And, so now when, the race didn't go to plan, at least I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my training. I enjoyed how I prepared, and I felt really good about it. And now I've got things to work on and things I'll change for next year, but it was still a positive and enjoyable experience.
Wow. So with the swim, what kind of techniques are you using for the swim to make sure that you don't have leaky goggles and you don't have foggy lenses and you don't get this is notorious for the washing machine effect here. How are you making sure that your goggles don't get kicked off? Because that could literally cost you the entire race just in that one instance. What are you doing?
Yeah, well, exactly. And, it's the start of the race is always the most chaotic, and you got everybody all together all at once. And so it's about having a good start. For me, I actually always put my goggles underneath my cap. So at least my cap holds the goggles on at the beginning. So if you do get kicked, I'm sponsored by Aquasphere. They make a soft rimmed goggle, the Cayenne, I've used since I've been working with them. And I love them because they're polarized. So for looking through the waves and the chop and stuff and all the glare, it cuts all of that. But it also, having the soft rim, I can't tell you how many times I've been kicked or elbowed in the eye, and it's just part of it. But it doesn't smash my eye socket because it's a soft rim. So for me, I actually choose that specific goggle for racing. Because it's the most comfortable. It stays on. In training, I use a hard lens goggle, just because I do like it for training. But come race day, I do training in the same goggle as well. So a lot of stuff that I do in training, I also do in racing. So for me, it's about keeping your goggles on. It's about them being comfortable. And, a lot of time the cap comes off anyway. So, if you have your goggles over top of your cap and then it comes off, well, then your goggles are going to come off with it, or, so I try and look at things ahead and say, okay, how can I reduce what's going to happen and plan for it? So
how can you control what's going to come out of this black box on race day?
Well, exactly. And you gotta look at potential, things that are going to happen. And you can't be prepared for everything, but you also have to be flexible in managing things. So you can prepare for everything and get stung by a jellyfish warming up. And I didn't have a plan for getting stung by a jellyfish, but, I've raced many years and I just go, okay, this happened. What do I do? Well, getting stressed out and freaked out, and that's not going to help me. So I just got to stay calm. I got to accept my fate, and I have to try and do what I can in this race. And, so I moved on and I, carried on with the race and got through the swim, and things kind of just got worse and worse from the sting. And, and at the end of the day, again, I had to pull out. But you do what you can, and you process things as they happen, and you make the best of whatever situation you're dealt, and then you just try and persevere.
Wow. That's a really good answer. So as the cannon goes off here, it's the massive moment that everybody has been waiting for. You're in the first pro men's wave here to get going on the day. What is this like for you to be in the lead pack going in the swim?
It's, you just train for, what your skill level is. And, and typically I'm a front group swimmer. I actually ended up being in the second group this year. I had a surfboard right in front of me, when we started, and that's just how it goes. You deal with it, you swim around it, and you carry on. And I ended up in a group that ended up getting split off, and I actually came around and tried to bridge it for a large portion of the way out to the first turn. Couldn't get across, and so ended up, leading the first chase group. And, you do what you can, and you stay strong, and you keep on your pace. And then, it's a long day. So, we didn't lose too much time to that front group. And, basically I stayed all the way to where I wanted to be in the swim, and then you just get out and you do the work on the bike, and you try and draw back the race where you want to.
Wow. So after the swim, you get out of the water and you head up to a T1. You're in there for just under 2 minutes, a very quick T1 time for Kona. What is this like for you? You're getting your bottle of water, rinsing out your mouth, and running to your bike. How is this going for you? Did you have an idea of where you were in the race?
Yeah, you usually have it, they're announcing it on the, PA, the different time gaps and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, again, you're in your race, you're doing what you can do. And, for me, it's about doing things as fast and efficient as possible. So basically, I don't worry about what's going on. I just worry about what I'm doing. And so, coming through ITU, we're used to fast transitions. And so I make it happen quick. And then I get out on the bike and get to work on what I need to, which is, riding strong, smooth, and, positioning and working my way up to that main group.
Wow. Now, I have to give you kind of credit here because you and we have something in common. That's the love for Oakley. And I've had Oakley sunglasses for 12, 13 years now, and you actually use an Oakley helmet. How do you like it?
I love it. As soon as they started developing the new helmets, and like anything Oakley does, they do a lot of testing. They do a lot of work on design, and they don't release something till it's perfect and it's top notch. And so I knew once I got the helmet that it was going to be a quality helmet. It was going to be comfortable, and it was going to be fast. And so as soon as I started riding in the Aero 7, it was awesome. I just liked it. Having the built-in visor, obviously you don't have to worry about putting on sunglasses, keeping sweat out of the lens. So I've been really happy with the new helmet, and obviously the eyewear on the run is great. And, just in training, it's, I've been working with Oakley for, the better part of 15 years, and,
Wow.
they just keep evolving and coming up with, better designs, better function, easier to change lenses, different types of lenses. So it's again, working with partners for a long time, you get to help develop things, but also see the evolution of their company and their product.
Wow. So for the bike ride, overall, you'll end up biking just under 4:30. But how does the first few miles go for you? Did you realize that this was going to be a good or bad day at the time? What was this like for you?
The beginning of the bike I felt pretty solid. Again, I knew where I was at. I knew there was a front group ahead. And so it was just a matter of, riding the first half strong and, being consistent. And, if I rode well, whatever guys were around us, we'd probably make some time. Definitely by the time you get back towards town after Hawi, everybody's, starting to hurt, and that back half is, it's sort of every man for himself, and people are, over road or blowing up, and people that are riding consistently are getting back. So it's, again, you gotta do your own day. During the ride, the first half an hour was pretty smooth. But then my nutrition system ended up getting jammed up, with my calorie concentrate. So I wasn't actually able to get my calories in because my straw was jammed. So I ended up having to clear the straw, but I ended up losing half of the straw, which then affected how well I could get my calories in. So, again, things you try and prepare for, but then stuff happens when you're racing. And, so I managed it. I ended up putting half the straw back in through the main part of the reservoir. And so I was able to still drink out of it, but I had to reach down and grab it with my fingers and pull it up high enough that I could drink out of it, but I was only halfway down into the bottle. So it made, getting calories definitely more difficult, definitely not as seamless as I had been training. And ultimately it meant I didn't get as many calories as I was thinking I was getting. So come the turnaround at Hawi, I sort of tried to figure out what I was going to do. I ended up getting some more calories. from my bottle, and I tried to manage getting in more calories, but it was just kind of a little bit too little too late, and I ended up suffering pretty badly coming down from Javi, and that's when I sort of got separated from the main group. And again, you know, my strength, which is normally the back half of the bike and the back half of the run, I wasn't able to ride very well, coming down from Javi, and just kind of struggled all the way back. And it was really frustrating because my riding had been going really well. And again, I'm usually really strong. And that first year in Kona, that's where I separated from the group, was coming back from Kauai High, and, you know, coming in fourth off the bike that first year was, you know, kind of where my level was at. And so it's frustrating to prepare for an event and not be able to do what you're capable of. And, you know, and just not getting my nutrition in and dialed was frustrating. I had practiced it and it had gone smoothly, but again, it's just some things happen during races and they don't go to plan. And so, yeah, so I got off the bike, not feeling great, having, you know, really suffered the back half. And, so in T2, I took some extra time. Like if you actually look at my transition time, it's probably slower than a lot of guys. And it's because I knew I had to get some calories back in. So I actually stopped in transition, did my normal quick transition, get my shoes and hat and all that sorted. But then I actually just sat in the transition tent and drank down some calories, tried to get rehydrated in the shade. And then once I got that sorted, then I was like, okay, let's move on. We've got hopefully some calories in, and I can regroup and I can have a good marathon.
Wow. So on the bike, to put this in perspective, you're going to hit about 300 to 350 calories on the bike per hour, and you're not able to get that, and that's leaving you in a deficit getting onto the run. And that's 4.5 hours of being at a deficit.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's you're already going to be at a deficit no matter how many calories you can get in. You can't eat as many calories as you're burning.
Right.
So it's so important to try and get as many as you can, so that you're at as little a deficit as possible when you get heading out onto the marathon.
Without causing GI distress.
Exactly. And so, you know, so I had calories and I thought I'd gotten most of them in, but it turns out that a lot of them were just sitting in that bottom half of that drink bottle that I couldn't get at with my straw. And so, you know, so I don't know exactly how many calories I didn't get, but I probably was closer to, you know, 200 calories an hour. And so, you know, I felt great the first 2 hours of the race, and, you know, I was sitting comfortably where I wanted to be and, you know, prepared to, you know, make my attack again from Kauai High, but I just couldn't get there. And, so yeah, it was frustrating, but you try and regroup and you head out. You know, the marathon's a long day, and, you know, I've come from, you know, way back and run my way back in the top 10. So it's just how you approach it. But, you know, again, you try and prepare for the race as best you can. And, you know, I came into it with a bit of an injury that I was managing leading up after Ironman Canada. And, I thought it had settled down, but in training, you never really do exactly, you know, a race effort. And, you know, so in Kona, you know, my foot had been bugging me, and, you know, and I thought it had settled down enough that I could run smoothly and efficiently. But as I got out onto the run, it was okay for, you know, the first couple of miles, but then it started to get sore. And as I progressed, I tried to, you know, work it out and stretch, and, but then it just kept getting worse and worse, which then caused me to run, you know, differently, which then stressed my IT band and my hip. And that's the thing, is once you're in a fatigue state, it's so hard to get back on form and be efficient. And so it just kind of spiraled downhill after that. I wasn't running efficiently. I wasn't running with good form, and I just kept overloading, you know, my IT band. And I've had a IT band injury many years ago, and it hasn't bothered me for a long time, but I've gone through it, and I know when it starts to flare up, it's not going to get better. And so as I ran up Polani, it was just getting tighter and tighter. And then as I started to run down Polani, it just, I was getting that classic stabbing pain in the side of your knee, and nothing, no stretching, muscle work. I was massaging my quad, my IT band, and nothing was making it better. And it was just getting worse. And I had to make that really difficult decision that, you've put a whole year of preparation and racing, and your, team of therapists and coach and family and sponsors have all, dedicated a lot of time to you to get ready for that race. And all you want to do is at the very least finish. And, and again, I had to make the decision that, do I finish and get really injured, or do I pull out and hopefully catch it before it's something that I can recover quickly from? And consulting with, my coach and my manager, Lisa Bentley, who's podiumed at Kona and won many Ironmans, we had a brief conversation and decided that, being healthy and able to race again is better than finishing and being injured. So I had to pull out, and it's, I've been a tough competitor my whole career, and I've, finished regardless of, the adversity I've seen in the lead up or during an event. And, I've only pulled out of, a handful of races, and it's a tough decision, but my job is an athlete, and I have to perform, and my body is required to do that. And if I can avoid a long-term injury, I'm going to make that decision. And so unfortunately, it was tough. And my family was there watching me, and they were there, just before I ended up pulling out. And I ended up, walking back and seeing them, and they know how hard I'd worked to be there and get to that point, and they understood how hard it would be to pull out. And I have the support of all my sponsors and all my family and all my team. And, they just want me to race at my best, and they know it's a hard decision, but they know it's the right decision. And so you carry on, and now I'm looking at, recovery and the next race and getting prepared for that.
Emotionally, that had to be so hard for you to make that call, because you are there to at least finish. And just like you said, you have everybody's support, but it's hard to make that call emotionally because you put so much into it yourself and everybody else's support as well.
Yeah, it's not just a performance decision. It's an emotional decision as well. So it's tough, but you have to do it, and you have to look long term, and you have to look at the short term as well, and the benefits and all that. And all those things are going through your head as you're racing, and and when you're hurting and you're not able to even just jog, it's you got to make that decision.
Man. So what was the straw that broke the camel's back for you to actually pull the plug and pull the cord to say, okay, I'm going to take my chip off now? What was this like for you to make that call?
It was just the pain for movement. That's the thing as an athlete, and, having done this for over 20 years, I know my body, and I know when things are working and when things are just getting worse. And it's, I know when, if I keep going, I'm going to be injured, and I know when I can push through things. And having gone through this type of injury before, it was, easier to identify. Emotionally, it wasn't easier to make the decision, but I knew that, okay, I've had this injury, this stabbing pain doesn't go away, and it'll only get worse. And I was jogging and stretching, and, it just, I would not have finished and been able to race again this year, or potentially the beginning of next year. That's the thing with IT band injuries, is they can be around a long time. So I want to, ideally race again this year, and I want to start next year strong. So that's the priority.
Wow.
It's being healthy.
So after this situation that you dealt with of pulling out, turning your chip in, all this stuff, what did you do next?
Well, like I said, I just went back to my family, and, Carolyn's parents were there. My dad was there, and, my friend Aaron that I live with here on Maui, and Lance and Lisa, we all just kind of chatted for a little bit, and then we all just kind of went back and just had some lunch, and, they've been doing this just as long as I have. So they know where I'm at. They know that, I'll get back up and do whatever I need to get healthy and get back racing. And, after every Kona, I've come back and I've raced, better and stronger and faster. So, so there's going to be, another sub 8 hour Ironman probably. And there's going to be, more wins and all of that. So this doesn't dictate the rest of my season or my career. And so, we just talk about it, and, but we don't dwell on it. We hung out, and like I said, it was an opportunity then for me to spend time with family, actual FaceTime. And, so my dad came and hung out with us a lot, and, Lance and I, spent some time together, and, cause the race and the day was done for me. And so I just have to recover and spend time with the people I care about.
Wow. So as far as this experience that you had to go through, what is something that you learned from this experience that you want to pass on to people that haven't done this and experienced this before?
I think, I had touched on it earlier, and it's about enjoying the process. It's every race, you never know what's going to happen. So you have to enjoy getting there. It has to be fun at times. You have to enjoy the hard work. You have to enjoy the people you're around when you do it, and see it as as something you get to do. Not everybody has the ability or the chance to train and do an Ironman. And so if you've decided to partake on that journey, that's something that you get to do and that you decided you want to do. So enjoy it, for the ups and the downs. There's hard workouts, there's good workouts, there's bad workouts. That's all part of it. And it's all about getting from point A to point B. And, the race is a big part of it, but it's not the only thing. And it's about what you learn about yourself while you're doing that journey. And then the race is learning just that much more. And whether it goes well or not, you still learn a lot about yourself. You still get to experience so many different things. And so it's not all about just that one day. It's about everything in the lead up.
Wow. I mean, it really seems like you have a lot of gratitude, and you learn how to have self-discovery along the way through each and every race.
Yeah. You got to love what you do and all aspects of it. And, and I've done hundreds of races, and I learn something from every race, and every race is different. And I've done Ironman Arizona 4 times, and every single time something different happens. How I feel emotionally, physically, it's different every time I do it, even though it's exactly the same course, similar fields. It's different. And that's the beauty of it. And that's the beauty of sport in general is, you are never in exactly the same point, same time, same fitness. It's always evolving. And so, that's why it's so fun, and that's why it's so challenging, because there's always something to work on.
Wow. So what's next for you? I know you're racing for Arizona, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm just seeing where my injury gets back to. A big race for me is, the Bahrain 70.3. It's a home team race. So the whole team kind of goes to Bahrain and supports the athletes racing and not racing. So that's an event I look forward to. And so, my goal is to basically, first of all, get healthy and get strong. And, I'm ideally, going to be ready for Arizona, but I don't know. It's a bit of a question mark right now. But I want to be healthy and fit. And so I'm not going to risk further injury, if it's not going to happen. So we'll see how things progress, and I'm getting treatment. I'm, getting better and making steps in the right direction. But when I'm ready to race, I'll race.
Wow. So we covered quite a bit about your race, your training, and your lead up. Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's it's a big experience, and, you could talk all day about it, but, I think got a lot of the ups and the downs of it. And, hopefully the next conversation about Kona is, about all the awesome things that happen and the great performances and the chance that I had to push myself to my limit. And I still believe I can do that, and I still have limits that I want to test and see where I can get to.
Wow. So to wrap up a little bit, how can athletes follow you?
I'm Try Brent McMahon on Instagram and Twitter, on Facebook. I have a website that's updated every now and then. But social media is good, and we'll see. Comment if they want. I try to reply as quickly as possible, and any questions, I always try to answer those.
Cool. So to wrap up a little bit, I only have a few more questions for you, and that's, what races are on your bucket list? You've been in sport for 20 years. I mean, is there anything else out there that you haven't done? Yeah,
well, I've done, while I was racing ITU and, qualifying, competing at the Olympics, I raced a lot in Europe. So I've yet to race an Ironman event in Europe. So that's something I want to do before I retire, is head over to Europe and do some racing there. They know how to put on great races there and great courses, great atmosphere. So definitely I'll be over to Europe at some point in the near future.
Wow. So this is always my favorite question to ask, and it's the last question. That's, what's your definition of a perfect race?
I think the definition of a perfect race is when you're happy going into it, you're confident and relaxed, and any challenge that you have during the event, you're able to take it on 100%. And that's not always the fastest you want to go. It's not always winning it, but you're able to take on the challenge wholeheartedly and overcome it. And, I've had races like that where I haven't won, but I've been so satisfied with the event. And then I've had races where I have won, Ironman Brazil, the year I, broke the course record there and, almost set the world record. I had challenges in that race and I overcame them, and I pushed myself as far and as fast as I could. And that was an amazing race, and I won it. But then I've had another race where, Arizona, where I had a flat and I had to regroup from it and race my way back into second place. And I didn't win, but I overcame those challenges. I was able to push myself and get the most out of myself. And that's what it's about.
Wow. That is amazing. Brent, I just want to thank you so much for spending so much time with me today. I've enjoyed learning so much from you and your vast amount of knowledge in the sport, over 22 years in the sport. Thank you so much for sharing everything, and I would love to have you back on in the future after Bahrain 70.3 and any other race you'd love to come back on for. I'd be willing to have you back on to help you share your journey. It's been great. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Well, have a good day, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Sounds good.
Thanks for tuning in today. I hope you were able to learn something from today's episode. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to leave a review on iTunes or share it with a friend. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you'd like to see pictures from this athlete's race, learn more about who I am, what I'm doing, or be on the show yourself to share your story, check out my website at CoachTerryWilson.com. Until next time, continue the pursuit.